My name is Joan. I am 76. I live in a house on the outskirts of a town that I once built myself. There is still an oak table here that remembers the laughter of my children. But the laughter is long gone. It has been replaced by silence. Thick, viscous, like syrup, it creeps into corners, settles on furniture, crawls to me at night to whisper the worst in my ear: no one needs you anymore. My daughter is now some kind of top manager. Her voice on the phone is always in a hurry. Dad, I can't right now, I have a meeting. My son lives in the capital, but we haven't seen each other for over a year. He says he is busy, that work eats up time. And my grandchildren? They have long considered me an eccentric. Their eyes light up with impatience when I start telling old stories. The phones in their hands weigh more than my words. Once I heard one of them whisper to the other, Grandpa is muttering something about war and work again, he'd better turn on Netflix. I wasn't angry. At first. Because I understand everything: youth, life, speed. But then I started to notice that I was no longer being seen. In the store, the saleswoman didn't even look me in the eye when she gave me change. In the clinic, the doctor interrupted me in the second sentence and started telling me about natural changes in age. I wanted to say that I wasn't just old, I knew when something was wrong. I'd lived with my body all my life. I felt pain both inside and out. But he was already filling out some papers without listening. And then I felt that my voice no longer had any weight. Every morning began to become the same. I woke up at dawn. I used to not allow myself to lie down later than 6. Old discipline. I made coffee that smelled of emptiness. I looked out the window, at the trees that still remember me, and at the people who have already forgotten. In the evenings I sat in a chair that swayed under my weight, still strong, because I made it well. And I listened to the silence. Not the one outside the window, but the one inside me. Where there was once excitement, faith, drive, now there is a lingering fatigue. Like raw air that permeates the lungs, but does not allow you to breathe. And then I started writing. Not memoirs, I am not naive. No one will read them. I wrote for myself. I wrote down little things, not for memory, but for clarity. Names. Dates. Looks. Words that hurt. Don't bother, grandfather, we have our own affairs. We could have done it on our own. It would be better for you to rest now, not to teach the youth. These phrases stayed with me longer than any news on TV. The walls of my house listen to me better than anyone. They know that I gave my life to others. And what do I have left? A pension that barely covers the medicine. A bed in which I sleep alone. Photos that gather dust. And silence. Always silence. But with it comes something else. Resentment. At first, it's soft, like a pillow that you don't want to lie on because it's someone else's. Then it's bitter, like undercooked coffee. And then it's hard, like a fist in your pocket. I'm not angry. No. But I remember. My name is Joan. And although everyone thinks I'm old, forgotten, weak, I'm still here. And I'm starting to remember who I was. My life used to smell like metal, sweat, and faith. I started with nothing. When I was 25, I slept on the floor of a warehouse where I packed goods during the day and counted pennies at night to save something. I didn't complain, it was my choice. And I knew where I was going. It seemed to me then that fate was something to be fought for, not waited for. And I fought. With people. With the market. With circumstances. And with myself. When I first earned enough to buy a truck, I didn't sleep for 2 nights with excitement. And when I opened my first office, a small room with peeling walls, I put a new chair in it. Not for myself. For clients. Because I always remembered how I started at the bottom. And I swore to myself, I would never look down on the weak. My children were still small then. I taught them honesty. I taught that a word should be worth more than a contract. That courage is not in strength, but in the decision to stand up for what you have. I fed my family not only with money, I set an example for them. And it seemed that they saw it. They respected me. My wife. She was my shore. We went through everything: illnesses, partners' betrayals, bankruptcy, lawsuits. She was there when I lost everything for the first time, and when I got up for the second time, and the third time. She knew how to be silent next to me in such a way that I felt support stronger than any word. When she was gone, something in me broke. But I didn't fall. Because weakness is something I never allowed myself. I remember standing in front of people at a meeting and saying, "If we bend, we lose. And I won't lose. And you won't lose either, as long as I'm there." And they believed. They listened to me. They trusted me. And now, I can't get anyone to just listen to me. My office used to be a place of decisions. Now it's a pantry. My son has turned it into a warehouse of useless things. There's an old fax machine that once processed hundreds of deals. And a printer that printed my plans. Now it's all gathering dust, just like me. My children often say that I live in the past. But what do I have left? The future? It's been stolen from me gradually, gently, without a sound. The real one? It's full of walls that don't listen and faces that pass by. All that's left is memory. And memory, it's like a knife. It can cut more painfully than any betrayal. I remember my wife's voice, as she told me, "You're not just strong, Joan. You're the one others hold on to. And now I'm the one they turn away from. The contrast is burning me from the inside. I used to be a pillar. Now an unnecessary suitcase. But do you know what hurts the most? It's not the contempt of strangers. I'm used to it. It's the indifference of those you raised with your heart. I've seen friends die. I've buried brothers. I knew how to lose. But losing your significance is a different death. Slow. Without ceremony. Without a coffin. And I still remember that I'm not a shadow. I'm the one who survived the fire. And if necessary, I'll return to it again. I used to wake up every day to create. Now I wake up to survive. Today was especially bitter. I called my son, Andre. I went to the doctor. I need to get some additional tests. Don't you want to go with me, talk to them? You're a lawyer, Dad, he interrupted. I've said it more than once. It's hard for me to get out of bed. I made the decision myself, you're not stupid. But I'll call later. I didn't call. I sat for an hour in the clinic corridor, where no one paid any attention to me. I told the doctor that I had a pain in my side. She waved her hand. At your age, it's normal. I'm glad you're still moving. I'm glad. It wasn't pain, it was a stone slowly squeezing my ribs from the inside. But she didn't care. It was more important for her to get another appointment. I'm a hindrance to her. An old delay. I went outside, feeling for the first time not sick, but an unnecessary body. My grandson came on Sunday. Not alone, with a phone. My fingers wouldn't leave the screen. I tried to talk to him, prepared an old construction set for him that he played with when he was little. He didn't even look. What kind of junk is this? You have nothing interesting here. I silently hid the box back. And at night, I wrote down, September 11th. Artem. Look, indifferent. Voice, contemptuous. Marked 1422. I started writing every day. Names. Events. Words that cut. Not to feel sorry. But so as not to forget. Because each of these little things is a nail. A small death. Silent, invisible. But painful. Because when someone you raised leaves you indifferent, it's not just an insult. It's like your story is dying. I became a silent piece of furniture for them. I live in the kitchen so as not to disturb them. Sometimes I think if I disappear, will they notice right away? The neighbors sometimes see me through the window. They nod. They don't come in. Everyone is always busy. And I was the one who once helped them with their debts, gave them advice, and resolved disputes. Now I silently remove leaves from my yard. And I feel how every day I am being wiped out of reality. And then that day happened. I was returning from the store. In my hands 2 packages. One was torn. I bent down to collect my things. Two young men were walking next to me. I looked up, asked, "Listen, guys, can you help?" They stopped. One looked me straight in the face. "What, grandfather, is it difficult? And where did yours go? Did they forget you?" "Ha!" And they left, laughing. I stood with a scattered cookie and a bottle of oil that had broken on the sidewalk. People walked by. Someone even stepped on my bag without noticing. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't ask for more. I just felt something inside me break. Not my heart. Not my hope. But the brakes. My head went quiet. Like the first time I lost everything and got back up. That silence was different, it breathed with strength. This one, it breathed with shadow. I returned home. And I heard a noise. No, not from outside. Inside myself. Something unfurled its shoulders. It straightened. It wiped the dust from memory. An old part of me. The one I had buried for the sake of my family. I sat down at the table. I opened my diary. I looked at the list. And for the first time I didn't feel pain. Only clarity. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, staring at my reflection in the black screen of the turned-off TV. My face was wrinkled, my eyes were dim. But something had changed deep down. I wouldn't ask for more. And I wouldn't wait. The world in which I was ignored was a world that lacked the real me. The one who knew how to keep a business going through tough times. Who won without fists, but with words, numbers, and actions. He returned. I got up. For the first time in many months, it was easy. I straightened my shoulders. My diary was on the table in front of me. I opened it. The pages were like a prepared list. Katerina. Daughter. Not a single sincere word for over a year. Manipulates as if it were a duty. Andrei. Son. Replace parental gratitude with corporate cynicism. Artem. Grandson. Contempt is a habitual reaction. Neighbors. Silent consent to my disappearance. In every name, memories, words that cut. But now, tools. I will not fight. This is not my style. I have played other games, high cold, with heavy stakes. And I will play again. I took the phone off the wall. The first call, a voice that had been silent for 20 years. Hello, Mikola. Do you remember me? Joan? What happened? Nothing. It's time to remember how we used to work. I began to restore connections. People who were once in the shadows. Lawyers, private analysts, informants, former partners. Someone was still in the system, someone left it, but everyone remembered my name. And respected it. A laptop appeared in the room. I sat down at it, as if at a command post. Search after search. Archive after archive. Data that seemed useless to anyone yesterday is now a weapon. Where does my daughter work? Who does she negotiate with? What weaknesses do her colleagues have? Who does she ask for recommendations from? Where does my son keep his finances? How does he hide his gifts from the company? What does my grandson look for on the internet, while he pretends to be studying? All this is not for the sake of revenge, but for the sake of justice. They need to see that the person they hid under the carpet of indifference can still walk. And not just walk, play the game. I began to act small, but precisely. One of my daughter's partners anonymously received a report about her internal correspondence, where she allowed herself sarcastic assessments of management. My son received a request to check his tax burden from a newly created analytical service. This service, of course, was created by an old acquaintance of mine. To Artem, a teacher wrote incognito about the strange activity on his account during remote testing. And also, I accidentally sent his video from a party to the school group, where he said things that were very undesirable for his reputation. And it all looked like coincidences. The world didn't punish them. The world just reminded them of their responsibility. And most importantly, they didn't know it was me. They just felt something was wrong. Something was bothering them. Something was making them doubt their own permissiveness. I didn't come to them with reproaches. I didn't apologize. I just came out of the shadows without saying a word. And suddenly, calls. Katerina asks how I'm feeling. Andrei wants to come over for the weekend. Artem sent an SMS. Grandpa, I'm sorry that I was rude sometimes. You're normal. I didn't answer. Because now they listen to the silence. And it is louder than any scream. They thought I would forget. They hoped that over the years, humility would come, not clarity. But I, Joan, do not forgive. This does not mean that I take revenge out of anger. I take revenge out of understanding. I created a system that does not destroy them. It teaches. But through pain. Through sleepless nights. Through revelations that will make you look in the mirror and see yourself. The real you. Katerina. Daughter. She always thought that her career was her personal triumph. But most of her victories were built on old acquaintances. My acquaintances. Those that I created. I contacted a former business partner, Igor. He is now an advisor to one of the companies that Katerina does business with. He organized a small cross-listening of her projects. Some details raised questions. Her superiors received an anonymous dossier with carefully selected facts, not slander, just the truth that had previously been hushed up. The result? She was temporarily removed from the project. They gave her time to rethink. That's what the official version sounds like. And in the unofficial version, she no longer feels untouchable. She came to me. Without warning. With eyes that were not full of superiority for the first time. Dad, I just wanted to see you. I was silent. For a long time. And then he said, Do you know how to listen, Katya? She nodded. And was silent for 2 hours next to her. That was her lesson. And the first, sincere, silence in years. Andrei. Son. I didn't break him. I just revealed what was already cracking. His little, white accounting, for his private practice was playing with fire. I contacted an old acquaintance who now works in the internal audit department of one of the financial institutions, where Andrei sometimes transferred accounts. The leak was neat. Without a trace. Everything looked as if someone else had noticed. Suddenly, an audit appeared. The call started. His lawyer hints that someone knows too much. And at that moment, he calls me. Dad? I don't know how to ask. But how did you ever get around audits? Do you want to hear advice from an old man who doesn't understand anything in the modern world? I said calmly. And for the first time he fell silent. And for the first time he listened. Artem. The grandson. It was the easiest to hack him. Not because he was weak. But because he never knew boundaries. I created a fake Telegram account. I entered his online environment, pretending to be a peer. I extracted a lot of information. Not to blackmail. I don't stoop to that. I simply exposed him to my parents. I threw them a laptop with correspondence that the technicians accidentally found during the repair. And they saw him for what he really was, arrogant, rude, devoid of values. And then, I sent him a voicemail. Artem. A real man is not the one who laughs at his grandfather, but the one who can look the truth in the eye. Today is your choice. He didn't answer right away. But 2 days later he brought me a notebook. Did you keep a diary, grandfather? Teach me. Others. Several neighbors received anonymous envelopes with excerpts from old cases in which I once helped them. They remembered that I was not just a shadow behind a curtain. I was the one who once pulled them out of the mud. They started greeting each other again. Some left cakes on the doorstep. Others offered to take them to the pharmacy. They saw me again. Not because I became loud, but because I changed the game itself. Everyone has their own pain. But I didn't destroy any. I just set up a mirror. And made them look. The silence of my house is no longer empty. It is filled with control. Calm. Sobriety. I don't break. I restore order. Because no one has the right to trample on those who stood when everyone else fell. I am 76. I have not gotten any younger. My body still aches. My memory is not as fresh. And I wake up at night more often than before. But one thing has changed. I am here again. I do not expect gratitude. I do not demand tears of repentance. Because everything I have done is not for the sake of forgiveness, but for the sake of dignity. For the first time in many years, my house has become quiet, but it is a silence not of emptiness, but of respect. The children no longer talk to me as if they were old furniture. They do not come for a tick. They are present. And not because I forced them, but because I forced them to see me. Artem sits in my office every Sunday. He reads aloud the excerpts from the diary that I have allowed him to. He asks again, listens. Grandpa, how did you survive at 90? The one who knows who he is survives, I answer. Sometimes I see Katerina glance at the old safe in the pantry. She knows that my archives, files, and records are stored there. She no longer asks if it's junk. She's afraid, and at the same time respectful. My son has become less likely to argue with me. He doesn't ask, "Why are you interfering in our lives?" Because now he knows, I'm not interfering. I'm simply reminding you of whose back held this family together until they could walk. Sometimes I stand by the window. I watch the yellow leaves slowly fall. And I understand, old age is not a sentence. It's a power that you have to be able to carry. The world is afraid of the old not because we are weak, but because we remember. In every wrinkle in us is a battle, a loss, a lesson. Young people think we are passive because we are tired. No. We are silent because we have already understood everything. I no longer seek respect. I call her. With a look. With silence. And with the shadow of who I was, and who I became again. Let them not applaud. Let them not thank. I need neither applause nor thanks. But now, no one dares to disrespect. And if you read this, if you ever forget that an old person is just the past. No, old age is a mirror. And one day you too will look into it. So respect it while there is still someone to give it to. And I am not waiting any longer. I am.
Subscribe and like. And tell your friends about this video.